The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/The Podcasting Dead.
Let's get weird on a Wednesday. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. And before we start, if you enjoy podcasts in general, every Wednesday we talk about paranormal or conspiracy. Anything weird we cover on Wednesdays. On Mondays we do a Walking Dead What If type podcast, and when the show gets back on the air we'll do episode reviews. We podcast about a little of everything, so if you enjoy podcasts, consider subscribing, and if nothing else, just do us a quick favor and hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. But today we are talking about the strange story of Hannah Up, with two P's on her last name. Now, my main source for this is MSN.com. I know the general layout of the story, but I do want to give credit where it's due. I am using an MSN article as kind of a guideline to keep me on track. Also, I saw this story on Mr. Ballin's YouTube channel, to which you should go check him out. He's freaking awesome. And some Wikipedia. So this is a really bizarre story with a lot of strange theories that range from government and mental manipulation to aliens to just flat out hoax. So we'll talk about the story and then we'll discuss what might be. So Hannah Up is this young lady that around midday, September 16, 2008, they found her floating face down in the water in southern Manhattan, New York. They found her and they pulled her up on deck and thought, obviously, being that she was in the water face down, that they had just stumbled upon a dead body. But upon taking her out the water, she gasped for air. Okay, now she was very badly sunburned and dehydrated and had hypothermia. But they got her to a hospital. Now, before they got her to the hospital on the ship, she was very confused, saying that she had just went out for a morning run, because when they found her, she was wearing like running shorts and a sports bra type thing. So, she was telling them, what happened? I just went out for a morning run. How did I end up in the water? And their thoughts obviously were like, she probably went running and somehow fell into the water, and, that's where we are. Well, when they got her to the hospital, it came to find out she'd been missing for 3 weeks before she was found. 3 weeks that she has no recollection of. And of course, because, when her family and everything got there, they were just overjoyed. Someone's been missing 3 weeks. At that point, you're almost looking for a body.
Yeah.
Unless you think they might have just ran away to start a new life, which is very rarely the case. So imagine someone's been missing 3 weeks and then they are found alive, and for the most part, well, she was being treated at the hospital for her sunburn and stuff like that. But alas, she made a full recovery, and they ran brain scans on her and didn't find any trauma to her brain to explain the missing time. See, the way it works is in late August, Hannah had left her New York City apartment and went for a morning run, and the next thing she knew, she was found in the water. And it's said that while she was in the hospital recovering one night, she just woke up and said, I was at a lighthouse. But then when her mom asked her about the lighthouse the next morning, she had no recollection of it whatsoever. In fact, Hannah said in an interview with the New York Times that, quote, I went from going for a run to being in an ambulance. It was like 10 minutes had passed, but it had been almost 3 weeks, which is wild. So while they didn't find any brain trauma, they did diagnose her with dissociative fugue. Is that how you say it?
That's how I say it.
Fugue.
I guess it's correct, yeah.
Which is, if you've watched the Jason Bourne movies, that's kind of what he had. Just like no memory of anything and all of that. And it's described by Psychology Today as, quote, a psychological state in which a person loses awareness of their identity or other important autobiographical information and also engages in some form of unexpected travel. Like there's one story of a hiker that went hiking and then all of a sudden, like, had no recollection. I think he'd been gone like 4 months or something like that, or 40 days. There's a 4 in there somewhere. But he'd been gone for a long time, and then he just shows up on his dad's doorstep, says he feels like he has no recollection of anything, how he ended up so far away. But apparently when he checked his backpack, he had found he had ran a marathon and had all of these souvenirs from his travel, and no recollection of any of it except for he felt like he'd been running. His body and his legs, they were tired, but no recollection of it, which is it's a very strange phenomenon. I've actually seen some people say that it's just an umbrella term for medical professionals to say, we don't know, but we're just going to put this name on it. Now, I'm not saying that. That's just what I've seen in reading. But Hannah, of course, thought it was weird, and it turned out like what they had come to conclude based on things they had found. So, for instance, during this disappearance, it was caught on video that Hannah walked into an Apple store, logged on to her email, didn't send or really check anything, but just logged on to her email. While she was in there, someone that knew her was in there. I'm not sure if they worked there or not, but they stopped her like, Hannah, is that you? You're missing. And she just as serious looked at him and said, I'm not Hannah, and then walked out the store. So I think what they had put together is that when she went off for her run, because, see, she left behind everything, her wallet, her passport, her credit cards, her cash. She took nothing with her. So it really seems on the surface like she did go just for a morning run with the intention of coming straight back. Also, in that 2-week period, she was spotted at a Starbucks, I believe. So, I mean, she was out and about, getting around town, but apparently not in her right state of mind. Now, see, after all of this, though, they pieced together that apparently somehow she had, gosh, I mean, it's so many weird pieces to it, but at some point she got in a kayak and paddled across to a lighthouse and sat on the rocks next to the lighthouse for about 24 hours, just sitting on rocks where they think is where she got the sunburn. Then got back in the kayak and apparently at some point ditched the kayak and started swimming, and that's where she was found when she was found in the water by those guys. But it's still, this is just what they're trying to piece together, just based on evidence and the few times they know where she was at and all of that. But so just no recollection of this whatsoever. And apparently it took a toll on her. She didn't like being known for this. She didn't like that people thought she was making this up, because she really stood to gain nothing from it, And then it happened again. So in September of 2013, she was actually now in Maryland working as an assistant teacher. And one morning, her mom gets a call from the police that her daughter's wallet and phone had been found on a path, like a footpath, a trail, and she was missing for 2 days, when she all of a sudden regained her memory while just laying in a creek in Maryland with a shopping trolley next to her. She asked a stranger to borrow their phone, called her mom, and her mom came and got her. Now, she's 28 at this point, if you're wondering how old is she. But they did find her safe and sound this time. Again, same thing, no real clues as to what. But one thing I'm noticing in these two cases is that she seems to have an attraction to water when she undergoes this trance-like state. You notice she wound up in the ocean. Second time she came to was laying in a creek. So something is calling her to the water, it seems, which is bizarre. About a year later, Hannah moves to to St. Thomas of the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is in the Caribbean, where she also worked as a teacher. And now they say she was an excellent teacher. Now, here's the thing about Hannah, some details about her. People loved her. They say that she's you hear this a lot about victims of strange circumstances, but she was the life of the party. If you were to ask any of her friends who her best friend was, they would have said it was them. She had that effect on people, just made everyone feel like her best friend. She was a very loved, cared for individual who was not known to go out and do crazy things to get attention. And so she moves to the Virgin Islands and becomes a teacher down there. And the school that she worked at even said that when they would have parents and students kind of checking out the school to see, if they were going to go there, her class is the first stop they took them on, because Hannah was a perfect representation for that school, because not only was she a good teacher, but she was passionate about what she did. She loved her students, just loved everything about teaching. So the school was very proud to have her on their staff, and took the parents there first to be like, this is what we do here. So, and she had made a lot of friends down in the Virgin Islands, a lot of different people that had been interviewed about Hannah, said same thing. She was fun. She was friendly. She was adventurous. Just an all-around good person. Well, she was living on the island when Hurricane Irma was coming through the Caribbean around September of 2017. And I remember when that was coming through. I think I was at the beach when that happened, like down in South Carolina. But it caused a lot of damage to her new home. She survived the hurricane, but they were about to be hit by a second one within a few days. On September the 14th, she had told housemates that she was going to go to school, but she never actually went to school, nor did she come home. The following day, her clothes were found folded, and car keys were found with them at a nearby beach. Now, keep in mind, September is the same month as her previous disappearances. So here it is, September again, and she's disappeared. Her friends explored the shore and the sea for like 3 days, and then they had to suspend it because Hurricane Maria was coming through.
Oh, man.
So now, and then the sad part of this story is now she was not found this time. Mm-hmm. So this time again, she's just she's gone this time, and unfortunately they have yet to find her. And people interviewed that had talked to her previous to this, like the day, like leading up to this last disappearance, said she was in almost a trance-like state. Mm-hmm. She was very sing-songy, like very just like she was in a good mood, but it was hard to communicate with her. Like she wouldn't really respond, and it's like she was just in another world before this disappearance. So, I mean, you've got several factors. It's always in September, and there's some strange unnatural attraction of water. Now, some people are afraid that the likely scenario is what happened is she swam out into the water
during a hurricane,
and unfortunately she drowned. Of course, that's just speculation because nobody or nothing has ever been found. But what a strange story, man. I mean, like the trance-like state. The first time she disappeared, she straight up rolled into an Apple store, knew how to use a computer, knew how to use a kayak, but has no memory, no recollection of it.
She has cognitive function. That much is clear.
Yeah, it's going through YouTube, and again, most of what I followed there was from MSN.com, but other details I've pulled from other sources, like I said, Mr. Ballin's video and Wikipedia, But I mean, it's just such a strange thing. This is definitely like it's like you're listening to the plot of a suspense movie, more than real life. But I mean, that's just an eerie thing to imagine somebody just walking around in a trance.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like I know at one point she even asked just a random person, "Hey, can I use your phone to call my mom?"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like she was aware, and well, for the most part, but then you say she's sitting on a rock in front of a lighthouse.
Well, when she asked to use the phone, that was when she had came out the second time that she went missing when she got out of the creek. But yeah, I mean, goes into a Starbucks. She goes into an Apple store and uses a computer. But again, for 3 weeks, how is she surviving that 3 weeks? I mean, how is she eating? Apparently, from what they say, they were able to find out that she was sneaking into gyms and using their showers.
Right.
But, like, what was she eating? She didn't take any money with her. Was she stealing food?
Must have been.
So many questions. I mean, I don't know. I've talked a lot giving this rundown. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, theory, speculation. Where's your head at with all of this?
I mean, I've never really looked much into this fugue dissociative disorder or whatever, but I mean, I guess it's possible that a brain just like kind of goes into a sort of like a nonstop buffer, mode, and I
Just
don't
like an
know.
autopilot mode?
I guess. I mean, I guess, like wires could be crisscrossed and you just zone. I know I've zoned out before, which generally, it's nothing like that. But
Well, now here's what might pique your interest, because, of course, as it does, the internet has taken this story and run wild with theories and
let's go
speculation.
wild.
MK Ultra. We have talked about that in a past podcast. You know a little bit more about it than I do. What was MK Ultra again? Because some people are saying that she was a victim of MK Ultra.
You're basically just taking, in many instances, just average people and turning them into like sleeper cells. Like, you're an assassin and you don't even know it. And then, a series of images or code, kind of like the Winter Soldier from, from the MCU,
Right.
Bucky Barnes.
Or for those that have played BioShock. In BioShock, your character can be controlled with the phrase, "Would you kindly?"
Mm-hmm.
If you say, "Would you kindly go over there and kill that man?" then your character just does it and can't help it, because this has been like implanted in your subconscious as like a control word.
Yeah, so part of her programming had to do with water, with training in water. Who knows? And maybe that's part of what sets it off. Maybe that's what drew her to the Virgin Islands in the first place.
Yeah, well, I actually was reading an account from a friend of hers, because her dad lived, gosh, forgive me for not knowing this, her dad lived somewhere not terribly far, maybe India, which I don't know my geography, so I don't want to say that's not terribly far from the U.S. Virgin Islands, but apparently that he would meet her there. And one person had left an account and said she didn't work with Hannah, but she had hung out with Hannah on the island. She lived on a neighboring island, and that, she had met Hannah and her dad and her seemed to just have a great relationship, and that Hannah was, as everyone said, a very fun-loving, very easygoing person. She had, been swimming with her, I think, he or she, the person who published the article didn't state, but this person had, socialized with her quite a bit and been with her in a lot of social situations. And, just as everyone else said, this is incredibly sad because she was a great person. So, I mean, just everyone around her speaking on her character, she doesn't seem, sometimes in these cases you'll find that this person, while they might not have made themselves disappear on purpose, they still, people will be like, oh, they always wanted attention, or, they definitely were like abused as a child. There's always some underlying something that gives away that there's a chance this person might just want the attention. But none of that from any witnesses that knew Hannah, just that she definitely wasn't the type of person that would go off and do this to get the attention. But some people point to MK Ultra and sleeper cells, that she might have had her mind messed with and never even known it, and that she had just been activated, or perhaps something used to trigger her. She saw or heard right. The order wasn't given, but just something triggered her, kind of like, I guess you would consider like an android or like a Roomba. If you don't, well, I don't know if a Roomba is a great idea, but, kind of like if it doesn't have a mission, it just kind of wanders around in autopilot. And that might have happened to her, with something triggered her sleeper cell part of her brain, and that she just went into autopilot, and just kind of was a zombie in a way. I mean, still functioning, but with no real purpose. Just kind of in that controllable state, but not given anything to do. So she just kind of wandered.
Yeah, it sounds like she was probably subjected to some kind of mind control program. They probably found out she was inadequate, and then just sort of like let her back loose into her life. And but
you think these type of things happen? That people are abducted and that's done to them? Yeah,
man. I think a lot of it has to do with like college. They find out, who's meets within a certain criteria, IQ-wise and all that stuff. I mean, we know the CIA recruits from these Ivy League schools and all this stuff, so.
I mean, the September thing is bizarre, too. Like, it's bizarre that it happens in the same months. And it's bizarre that, you have the commonality of September and water.
You think that's what the Green Day song was about? Wake me up when September ends?
Oh my
You think
God!
they took it from the story?
I mean, like I know that's
they're in on it.
I know that's kind of a joke, but that's I mean, wake me up when September ends. Wow. No, because I think that was written. Maybe that was a secret message.
Yeah, maybe they're in on it, dude.
But which Hannah Disappearing is not funny, so I apologize for the laughter. But that is a good point. I haven't thought about that. Wake me up when September ends.
Ugh.
But I don't know, and it's sad too because you have a lot of things. You also have like older people that have Alzheimer's or
like
dementia that do this. They just wander off and they don't have any recollection, or And we looking more on the not conspiracy mind control side of it, but maybe more on the medical side of it. I know they said they diagnosed her with that, but I mean, we commonly think that, and you and I work in radio, and we've spoken to the Alzheimer's Association many times, and Alzheimer's is something that really only affects older people. Mm-hmm. But I mean, how do we know that perhaps it doesn't affect younger people? It's just much more rare than it affecting older people.
Yeah, it's possible, man. But so they say the brain scan didn't really show any anomalies.
No trauma, nothing like that. No.
Wow.
No trauma, nothing like that.
Yeah, that really makes you wonder. And you also have instances we were talking earlier, missing time with alien abduction accounts and things like that.
Yeah,
which,
well,
at least,
that's another one that that I was going to bring up is missing time in extraterrestrials. I mean, but the thing is with Hannah, she wasn't really missing. Mm-hmm. I mean, she was missing, but she wasn't missing because it's not like she just dropped off. Now I know one article that was shared from a paper said it. While she was missing, it was like the city had just opened up and swallowed her. Uh-huh. But she wasn't completely missing because we have, witnesses and even video that she was out and about during this time. But that doesn't mean that doesn't rule out the whole alien abduction missing time thing. It's very bizarre that's got to be terrifying. The thought that just 3 weeks of memory wiped.
Oh, yeah, dude.
In your mind, it feels like 10 minutes. You went out for a morning run. Now some strangers are pulling you up out of the water and you're on a boat. I think it was a ferry that found her. Yeah,
that is an awful feel. I mean, it's, nothing in that league, man, but just, I'm prone to alcoholic blackouts, especially when I was younger. And I mean, and it's no worse feeling than waking up in the morning and trying to recollect what happened that night, especially when you find out you did some pretty muffed up stuff. So, I mean, I can only imagine, like, in the blink of an eye, like you missed out on 3 weeks of your life.
See, I'm not going to say I'm prone to blackout drunks, but it has happened.
Yeah.
But I usually just pass out before I get to that point. But
I used to black out like crazy.
I've definitely had that happen a few times in my life, and it is you wake up wondering who you owe an apology to.
Right? Yeah.
What did you do? Like just the most recent time it happened was a few years ago on New Year's Eve, and we always have New Year's parties down in my basement, and like the next morning, I think it was the very first one we did because after that I heavily intoxicated because it's New Year's Eve, but I usually just go to sleep or pass out. But I remember that first time waking up wondering, who do I owe an apology to? Mm-hmm. What happened? How destroyed was my basement? All this dread. I absolutely hate it. So I can't imagine losing 3
Worst
weeks.
anxiety ever, yeah.
So, I mean, you've got several theories there. I mean, it could just be this, say it again, how do you say the term? Fugue?
Fugue.
Fugue. Is it fugue or fuke?
I say it fugue, and I could be wrong. I'm more or less getting it from that episode of Breaking Bad, but
Walter White faked.
Yeah, fakes a fugue state.
So he's standing naked in the store.
Yeah, but I could, like I said, I could absolutely be mispronouncing it.
But it could totally be that, which is very little is known. It's not, a very widely understood, and it's super rare.
Yeah, and there's still so many mysteries with the brain, I
mean, it's weird that it's like she shut off. I mean, and some people, what is it, dissociative personality disorder or something, where you more or less are two people.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just weird that the main you is shut off and your body just goes into autopilot. And it's even more bizarre that when asked, like Hannah, you're Hannah, right? That she said, I'm not Hannah, and left. Like, That to me is bizarre. I mean, she spoke. It'd be one thing if when the person approached her in the Apple store and was like, "Are you Hannah?" and she didn't respond, or she just looked like she was in a trance and walked away. Like, she looked at the person and responded, "I'm not Hannah," and then she left. So I mean, she's talking, she's showering, she's obviously eating. I would imagine. Drinking water. I mean, you don't last very long without drinking something. So she's doing her basic human functions to keep herself alive. I assume she's going to the bath. She's fully functional.
Yeah.
But she's not herself, which is why a lot of people lean towards. Well, I say a lot of people. A lot of those that are coming up with conspiracy theories lean towards the MK Ultra sleeper cell thing, that she'd been activated. But without any kind of mission or anything, she just was wandering around in autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds like it could be very plausible.
And it's just strange to think. I mean, that was the U.S. government was playing around with that, right?
Oh, yeah, man. I'm sure they still are,
Where were they getting their did they have volunteers? I mean, where were they getting their subjects?
Well, I mean, some, with certain things, man, they would get convicts in prison. I mean, they did that a lot with like LSD trials and stuff. I think Whitey Bulger was one of the most famous examples of that. Like during his stay in prison, I think the guy who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, I want to say he took part in those kind of trials as well. So, yeah, back then, man, it was just open season. Like, if you want maybe a reduced sentence, get out of prison a little faster, hey, do these LSD trials, and who knows what other kind of experiments they were doing.
It's like with her, being she, to my knowledge, not been in prison. I mean, if that was the case, she would have had to have been abducted or something.
Yeah, or, I mean, it could have been something as simple as she thought she was participating in, like, a sleep study. And unbeknownst to her, they were putting her under and, doing
that's
all this
very
weird
interesting,
stuff to
man.
her.
I wonder if anybody's ever asked her family if she's ever participated in any kind of studies, sleep study or.
Oh yeah, man, I'd love to get more information on this case. I was seeing in the article there was actually a documentary made in the last year or so.
Ooh, I definitely want to check that out.
That would definitely be cool to watch.
We definitely have to check that out, and if there's more information on it, we can definitely revisit the subject.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. It's a very bizarre, very sad, too. I definitely thoughts out to her family. I mean, that sucks.
Yeah, dude, that's awful. I've been telling you, I've got a personal friend of mine that's been missing for like a couple months, and same thing, just disappeared off the face of the earth, and it probably has to do with owing drug dealers money. But it is, I hate it for any family, man, where someone just disappears without a trace and you never find out what happens.
Being I've never been in that scenario, I guess I don't know, but I always wonder, like, what's worse, like losing a family member or not knowing.
Yeah.
Because you almost feel like the not knowing has got to be even worse. I mean, you've essentially lost them.
Yeah, never any closure.
And sometimes, you hear these stories where people are missing for a while and then they show back up. So part of you's probably holding out hope that they'll return one day, but then another part of you is accepted that you've lost them. And I just feel like the not knowing has got to be horrible. Yeah. Horrible. I mean, it's always horrible to lose someone you care about, but not knowing, it's got to be just an awful, awful thing to go through. So definitely thoughts out to her family. And, I don't know. You want to be hopeful and be like, you know what? Well, I mean, it's been three years now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're in September now. So it's been 3 years now. I mean, gosh, definitely the accepted thing is she probably just swam out into the storm, which is so sad. Think about that, man. A girl not in her right mind, just swimming out into the ocean to her death during a hurricane with no control over herself. That's horrible.
Yeah.
But you never know, man. I mean, she might be. Because there are some people who say that, oh, no, because she did go to Maryland and to the islands because she didn't like being known for this. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing why they say she wasn't seeking attention for it, because she relocated, because she got tired of being known as the girl that just lost her mind and disappeared. It wasn't something she wanted to get attention for. And then, it just kept happening. And, so it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, you just always think, I mean, she might show back up one day.
Maybe, man. And, you know, like we had said earlier, why didn't they just like microchip her? You know, that you feel like they would have taken some kind of precaution.
And you know what? The family might have wanted to do that, and she might have been against it.
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
I definitely feel like if I had something that scary happen to me, I would definitely be like, give me some kind of GPS bracelet.
Yeah, for real.
Or anklet. You know, I mean, nobody wants to walk around looking like they're on house arrest. But, I mean, just a little something. I mean, microchipping, I could understand not wanting to put that in your skin, but there has to be some kind of GPS, a necklace or something I can wear to, and I mean, of course, the argument then could be, well, in your state, you might take it off. Oh, well, it'd be a chance. Give me a bracelet or a watch with a GPS tracker in it if I wander off, something like that. I mean, I definitely don't say take away their freedom, but if they're prone to just disappear and possibly put themselves or others in dangerous situations, or if that was me, I would want you to know where I am.
Yeah, I would totally say, hey, put a chip in me.
But then the part of me that's like, I don't want everybody, I feel like, well, I don't want a chip in me because I want to be able to take it off if I want.
Yeah, I don't know, though, man. If somebody found me, like, floating face down in the ocean somewhere, I'd be like, yeah, just go ahead and track me.
Oh, at that point, definitely a hazard because they would have found her just a few minutes later. She probably would have drowned.
Yep.
And then just imagine and that just makes you wonder with so many missing persons and murder cases. Like, I mean, imagine she never, God forbid, and I mean, in my heart, I hope for that family that one day she shows back up and then they can take the steps to make sure this never happens again. But, I think after 3 years, we all kind of feel the worst has probably happened.
Probably.
But, if she would have been found, imagine if she would have been found a few minutes later and she drowned on the very first time this happened. Mm-hmm. All right. Imagine all the questions.
Oh yeah.
Like it would definitely just be they would think it was definitely homicide because it'd be like, okay, she must have been kidnapped. We saw her go into the Apple store and then she said she wasn't herself and then she went into a Starbucks and then someone just just killed her. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, that doesn't seem to be the case, unless, and I mean, some people theorize she was being drugged by somebody who was trying to control her. I mean, keep in mind, you do have these instances in, like, what was it? It was somewhere I believe over in Africa where voodoo is prevalent. They had the first, like, human zombie where this guy had been presumed dead because this voodoo witch doctor had given him this stuff to make him appear dead, but then went and dug him up or what have you, and was basically feeding him these chemicals that kept him in a very zombie-like state. Like this guy could do very basic functions, and if you don't believe me, you can look that up. It might have been in Haiti, actually. But, he could do but I mean, he was their slave.
Yeah. Because
he had enough function to move and stay alive, but he had no free will, no choice, no personality. I mean, that was a real documented case. Who's not to say that might not be the instance in this?
Yeah, dude, it's hard to say.
I mean, the possibilities are really endless with something like this. But I mean, think about the commonalities there. All right, this guy was a zombie with no sense of personality. Like he could walk around, and I believe he could talk. I mean, he didn't start conversations with people, but he could talk. Mm-hmm. Basic function, but that's it. No, and then I think, finally, I think he was freed with no real recollection of what happened. I mean, she sounds much the same. I mean, who's to say someone wasn't drugging her up?
Yeah, man. I mean, think about it. That's how Charles Manson had such control over his people. He'd dose them up on LSD.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the possibilities are just astounding of what this could be. And like I said, I mean, these are all just me repeating things that I've read down in comment sections and threads and things like that. I mean, in all reality, it could just be a simple mental. It's nothing simple about it, but a mental disorder.
Yeah.
And, because there's so much we don't know about the human brain and how we function. So let us know your thoughts down in the comments section below. If you've got any more information on Hannah, please let us know. And, if you've seen Hannah, for the love of God, make sure you notify authorities because her family's missing her and It's just such a sad situation, but we'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject. Patreon listeners, we are back tomorrow on regular schedule. We did have to skip this Tuesday because we completely forgot about Labor Day when scheduling out this week's podcast. It's just like, oh, wait, we're not going to be in the studio Monday. But if you enjoy this podcast, consider checking out our Patreon. We give 2 extra podcasts a week along with contests and fun stuff like that. And for as little as $1 a month, you can get 8 extra podcasts per month. Now, granted, if you want to throw, like $5, $10, that's even more helpful. But even as low as $1, you get 8 extra podcasts a month. And I think it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out, and we'll catch you tomorrow, patrons. And as for the rest of the wide web, we'll catch you Monday for more Walking Dead What Ifs. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
Stay weird.